I've been playing Lords of the Fallen for the past couple of days and have a pretty good time jumping in and enjoying everything Lords of the Fallen have to offer. The problem is there were a handful of mistakes that I was making relatively early and pretty much through my entire playthrough that made the game much harder than it needed to be. So in this video I'm going to be sharing my tips and tricks that I've learned along the way as I progress through Lords of the Fallen. These tips and tricks will give you some direction and maybe help you avoid some mistakes that kind of held back my gameplay, and of course these are going to be spoiler free. But just remember, if you do enjoy this type of content, leave a like as well as subscribe. It helps me out quite a bit. And yeah, let's dive right into the first tip. Now, because I'm a YouTuber, one thing I do very early is to check and see if the game has a photo mode for obviously my thumbnails, right? And one thing I've noticed while I was doing that early on in Lords of the Fallen was that the camera has pretty good range and you actually are able to just freely move around. Now, the significance of this beyond just having really good photos is the fact that I can look around and see things on the map that could possibly give me extra loot. Obviously, I want to find every hidden loot and gear available, and the photo mode is really good at letting you navigate and see around the entire world. So my first tip is going to be a little bit of a weird one, but you should use photo mode to see around the area if you have noticed you haven't run into loot, or if the area is just a little hard to navigate. You can use it to see where you need to go and or look for loot. Early on, you're introduced into a mechanic called Soulflaying, and this is a really important mechanic outside of combat because it has a very unique ability to let you see memories. Now, for me, early on, I skipped every memory that I saw because I just thought it was lore, but one thing to note is these memories are actually pretty important because they actually drop Umbral Scourings. Now, these Umbral Scourings are actually used to give you the ability to buy boss weapons. If you ever defeat any boss and they drop a memory, if you Soulflay that memory, you will get Umbral Scourings as well as the remembrance of that boss. If you ever played Elden Ring or games like it, you know how this works. You basically bring that remembrance to a specific mob, and that mob will give you a weapon tailored towards that type of boss. And this is important to note because you should do this on every single memory, because while they won't give you remembrances, they will give you those Umbral Scourings that you will need to actually purchase weapons. Unfortunately, I had to backtrack and go and get the ones that I skipped over because I thought they were purely for lore, but I would highly recommend you take a second, look at the lore, and get this so you can get the Umbral Scourings. The next tip I wanted to talk to you guys about is the dodge mechanic in the game. Now, early on, you are introduced into the dodge mechanic, and basically you can tap the dodge button to do a quick step, or you can double tap it to do a full dodge roll. Now, the reason I bring this up because I know most of you understand the dodge mechanic, but I want to help you understand the mindset behind the design of these dodges. The quick tap dodge or the short step dodge is the one that's designed to be a more offensive dodge. And what I mean by this is typically the reason you would want to use this dodge is to use it to gap close in a safe way. Typically when I'm in a fight, I use the quick step dodge to gap close to make sure that I can get in while still being relatively safe. Of course, the window is much lower than the full dodge, but the point of it is to basically let you gap close relatively safe. On the other hand, the big dodge or the double tap dodge is designed to jump really far. This kind of disengages you from the fight very heavy. The devs want you to use this in those situations where it's relatively tough and you need to have a bigger invulnerability window. You sacrifice positioning for invulnerability, and then vice versa, you sacrifice some invulnerability frame for positioning. Just keep in mind that's how the team designed these mechanics, and you should use them in a way to make it so that you can have an easier time when you're facing off against bosses and enemies in the game. The next tip I want to give you guys is resetting your build. Now, I want to be very clear, there aren't that many resets that I've seen in the game, so you want to be very frugal when you use the one that I show you. Now, early on, once you get to the Skyrest or the main hub, you will run into an NPC called Malu. Now, Malu is a mob that's in the Shadow Realm or in the Umbral Realm, and you basically want to go to his shop. In his shop, he has a Rebirth Crystallis, and just keep in mind, again, this is the only one that he sells. So you want to be very frugal with this. Once you have it, you can go back to Pieta to basically reset your build. But I know I said it already twice, but just be aware there's not many resets available in the game, so just be very mindful of that. Also, Malu is the person that does the remembrances, so if you have remembrances, you can just get it from him here. So you can get the boss items that you earn facing off in the game. The last and final tip I want to give are the orange lamps. In the orange lamps, you'll see them on the ground sometimes randomly, and when you activate them, what's going to happen is they're going to lead you to a very tough enemy. Now this enemy is very similar to other mechanics in Souls-like games, basically giving you the ability to get extra loot if you defeat it, because they basically defeated players. Of course, they're going to be marginally stronger than previous bosses of that type, but just know whenever you kill them, they will drop these really cool items called Plucked eyeballs. And the point of these are to be used at Skywrath, because you can actually use them to get yourself some really cool items that are generally exclusive to PvP. Now I know not everyone's interested in PvP content, and this will be a really good way for you guys to, you know, go and farm them without having the nuisance of going into PvP. Obviously you want to stick around the areas you know that have really tough bosses if you're looking to farm these. And that'll be the best way to do it if you ask me. Alright, there you have it guys. Those are the mistakes that I was making relatively early on in the game. Some of these are really cool, some of these are a little bit hidden, but they should help you as you progress in the game. I didn't want to add too much more. I know there's a lot of other tips I can give you guys, but I feel like those would like ruin or spoil the game. But these will help you out significantly as you progress. With that said, if this video helped you out, leave me a like as well as subscribe for more Lords of the Fallen content. And I'll see you guys in the next video very soon. Later.